Evolution has no end goal. There is no blueprint, no finish line, and no conscious designer aiming to build a flawless animal. When we look at the intricate camouflage of an octopus or the aerodynamic wings of a falcon, it looks like careful engineering. In reality, all of that apparent design is the result of blind, undirected glitches. Biological reproduction is an inherently imperfect process. Every time DNA copies itself to build a new generation, the machinery makes mistakes, printing random typos into the code. We usually think of errors as system failures. In biology, those exact replication errors are the mandatory fuel that runs the entire evolutionary algorithm. Biologists refer to this constant rate of error as genetic variation. Genetic variation is a biological random number generator. A master string of code copies itself, but built-in typos split the code into variants. The result is a constant churning of physical chassis with slightly different hardware specs, some taller, wider, or jagged. This generation phase operates completely blind. The code doesn't know if the planet is getting hotter or if a new predator appears. It simply produces a chaotic, randomly generated swarm of varied physical bodies. This swarm acts as raw input data for the next phase. Once those bodies are built, they are dropped into a deeply hostile testing environment. The universe imposes strict parameters, like limited calories, crushing planetary gravity, and wild temperature swings. This friction between the organism and its surroundings is known as environmental pressure. Visualize this pressure as a brutal mechanical sieve, a rigid wall of geometric cutouts hurtling toward our chaotic swarm. It acts as a passive physical filter. If a body's dimensions align with a hole, it passes through. If not, it shatters against the rock. Survival in the wild is strictly the mathematical probability of navigating a physical filter. An animal's effort or willpower is a statistical irrelevance. We can see exactly how unforgiving this filter is by applying it to a real ecosystem. This mechanical schematic shows what happens when the random number generator prints a bird. Its beak is a highly specialized tool, but due to a genetic typo, the geometry overlaps by exactly 2 millimeters, blocking it from reaching the seeds inside. In this specific scenario, the bird's intelligence, its flight speed, and its overall physical strength are completely irrelevant. Because it cannot interface with its required food source, the biological chassis starves and shuts down. Death in the wild is simply what happens when a physical vehicle fails to match the specific geometric holes of its local environmental sieve. To really grasp this algorithm, you have to let go of your empathy for the individual animal. The lifespan of a single physical organism is an irrelevant metric. Instead, we have to adopt what biologists call the gene-centered view of evolution. In this framework, as this diagram illustrates, the physical organism is nothing more than a temporary, highly perishable, disposable vehicle. The priority is the glowing string of code inside it. The codebase builds this disposable shell for one specific reason: to act as a courier carrying and replicating the code before the shell expires. The individual animal does not matter. Natural selection is strictly concerned with transmitting and preserving that internal data packet across deep time. When a vehicle fails the environmental sieve and is destroyed before it can copy its hard drive, the consequences are final. That specific string of mutated code is permanently deleted from the global server. The phrase "survival of the fittest" describes the persistence of a codebase that printed an optimized vehicle for a specific, temporary environment. Raw physical strength is merely one of many possible hardware specifications. Surviving vehicles immediately start the next processing loop. They print thousands of new, varied copies, instantly pushed toward a completely different environmental sieve. Because the random number generator never turns off, and the environment constantly shifts, this violent sorting process repeats endlessly. Natural selection is a relentless, blind algorithm. It shapes complex information exclusively through the continuous physical destruction of defective hardware.